All right, let's talk about a weird paradox, something you might have even felt yourself. It's this idea that speaking your goals out loud might actually be the very thing that stops you from achieving them. It's all about the secret power of staying quiet. Let's dive in. Have you ever had this happen? You get this amazing idea, right? A huge goal, and you're just buzzing with excitement. So naturally, you tell your friends, you tell your family, you tell everybody. And then, crickets, nothing. The motivation just vanishes. Why does that happen? It feels so backward, but it's a super common thing. And today, we're going to figure out why. To really get to the heart of this, I want you to meet Simon. Think of him as the poster child for this problem. He was a guy with endless dreams, but he had this one strange habit. He was incredible at making big announcements, but, well, pretty terrible at getting any real results. So Simon's pattern was always the same. One week, he'd gather everyone and declare, "I'm going to open the biggest shop in the village." The next, he'd be telling everyone he was going to become a master potter. He just loved standing in the town square, making his grand plans known, and just soaking in all that applause. It made him feel so proud, so important. And honestly, that feeling was enough for him. The problem? When the next day came and it was time to do the actual hard work, his motivation was just gone. And so years went by, totally full of words, but completely empty of any real accomplishments. And as you can imagine, this whole cycle left Simon feeling deeply ashamed and just stuck. He had all these amazing dreams, but his heart was heavy because he just couldn't figure out why he kept failing himself. But right here, this is where his story really begins. One evening, a wise village elder saw how troubled Simon was, and instead of just giving him some simple advice, he offered him a powerful, hands-on lesson. A lesson that all came down to 2 little seeds. The elder's experiment was so simple it was brilliant. He had Simon plant 1 seed in good soil, but in total secret, watering it quietly where no one could see. The second seed, though, that one he placed right out in the open, on a rock, for everyone to see and praise and talk about. The result? Well, it tells you everything you need to know. The hidden seed grew into a strong, healthy plant, while the announced seed just dried up in the sun and vanished. The elder's explanation was so simple but so profound. A dream, he said, is just like a seed. It's fragile when it starts. It needs the silence and the darkness of your quiet, focused effort to actually sprout. When you drag it out into the light too early, celebrating it with a bunch of words, it never even gets the chance to grow roots. Now here's the cool part. This story isn't just some old fable. It actually points directly to a real psychological principle. The elder's wisdom basically explains the science of why getting praised too early can absolutely kill our motivation. So the key idea here has a name. It's called social reality. And what it means is that your brain gets this little hit of pleasure of dopamine when people praise you for your intention to do something. Your mind literally gets confused and mistakes that social validation for having already done the hard work. You get the reward before you've even started. And this is exactly what the elder was trying to show Simon. That little bit of pleasure you get from the praise tricks your brain into thinking, hey, job's done, long before the job has even begun. And that fire, that inner drive you need to get through the tough stuff, it just fizzles out. To put it really simply, all that precious energy, all that motivation that you should be using for action, it gets completely wasted on just talking. It's like a short circuit in your whole motivation system. Okay, so what do we do about this? Let's go back to Simon. Because once he understood this idea, he completely changed how he approached his dreams, and pretty much his entire life. He chose one simple, small goal: build a wooden chair. But this time he did something different. He told no one. He just worked. Quietly, in private, he built that first chair. Then he built a table, then a shelf. And over the years, through silent, steady effort, he became a master craftsman, respected not for what he said he was gonna do, but for what he had actually done. And you know what? In that process, he discovered a feeling that was way more powerful than the cheap thrill of applause. It was that deep, quiet pride that you can only get from creating something real with your own hands. That satisfaction of doing, not just announcing. Eventually, a neighbor saw a beautiful chair outside Simon's house and asked when he'd made it. Simon's answer was so simple, but it summed up his entire new way of life. He just said, "I wanted to finish it first." His actions were finally speaking for him. So, how can we use this? How can we all be a bit more like the new Simon? Well, it's a pretty clear path. First, choose one goal, just one. Second, and this is the toughest part, work in silence. Tell no one. Protect that little seed. Third, learn to find joy in the work itself, not just dreaming about the praise you'll get later. And finally, show, don't announce. Let what you've made be the announcement. This is really the core of it all. The world doesn't need a play-by-play of your ambitions. Honestly, it's a lot more impressed by your results. So focus on building, not broadcasting. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. That one big dream you have, what would happen if you decided to protect it, to nurture it in private, and just let your actions do all the talking? What masterpiece are you going to build in silence?